She let a struggling single dad borrow her umbrella, not knowing he'd one day walk her down the aisle. The storm hit harder than forecasted. Rain poured like someone had ripped open the sky, and the subway stairs were flooded halfway to her knees. Riley clutched her tote bag above the waterline, teeth chattering, mascara trailing, coat soaked through, and she was still going to miss the interview. Her phone buzzed. Low battery, 3%. She nearly screamed, then saw him. A man on the platform, barefoot, holding a baby wrapped in what looked like an old hoodie. He stood against a flickering vending machine, soaked to the bone, his eyes locked on the steps as if he were deciding whether to run or fall apart. Their eyes met. The knock came just after midnight. 3 sharp raps, urgent, not angry. The kind of knock that's heavy with desperation. The kind of knock that wakes you from the edge of sleep and sends your heart sprinting before your brain catches up. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She sat up slowly, eyes darting to the window where rain streamed down in angry lines. Thunder rumbled low across the sky like a distant warning, and for a moment she considered ignoring it. But there it was again. Another knock. This one softer, slower, almost pleading. She rose from the couch, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. Her legs moved before her thoughts could stop them, driven by a pull that came from somewhere deeper than logic. She didn't live in the best part of town. Everyone knew that. But she'd lived here long enough to recognize the difference between trouble and someone in need. And this sounded like need. She unlocked the front door but kept the chain on, peeking through the small crack. A man stood there, soaked to the bone. His dark jacket clung to his tall frame, plastered against him by the rain. Behind him stood a boy, no more than 5 or 6, clutching a worn backpack and a plastic bag filled with who knew what. The child's hair was matted from the rain, his cheeks flushed with cold. His tiny hands clutched the man's pant leg like it was the only anchor in a storm. "Please," the man said. His voice was low, hoarse, exhausted. "I don't mean to scare you. We just need a place to stay for the night. Just tonight." Clara blinked. Her hand hovered over the chain, hesitating. He raised both palms, backing up a step. "I'm not asking for anything else. We've just been turned away from 2 shelters. My son," he glanced back at the boy, "he's burning up. I just need him out of the rain." The boy swayed slightly and something in Clara's chest twisted. That wasn't just cold. That child was sick. Her fingers moved on instinct. The chain slid free. She opened the door wider. "You can come in, just until the rain stops," she said quietly. The man nodded. "Thank you." As they stepped inside, Clara took a good look at them. The man was older than she first thought, maybe mid-30s. He had a worn-down look about him, like he'd been carrying too much for too long. There was something in his eyes, too, not just fatigue, but a flicker of something else. Grief, guilt? She couldn't tell yet. The boy clung to him, his teeth chattering. Clara ushered them toward the couch. "Let me get a towel," she said. By the time she returned with dry clothes, some old sweatpants and a hoodie from a box marked donations, the boy was curled up against the man's side, his eyes barely open. Clara handed over the clothes, and the man nodded in thanks. "I'm Clara," she offered gently, keeping her voice low so she wouldn't startle the boy. The man looked up. "I'm Noah. This is Liam." She knelt beside the boy and pressed the back of her hand to his forehead. It was burning. "He needs medicine," she murmured. Noah looked away. "I know." That answer told her everything she needed to know. He didn't have it, couldn't afford it, or couldn't get it tonight. Either way, he was trying. She could see that. It was in every thread of his soaked clothing, in every soft pat he gave Liam's back when the boy coughed. "You have a kid?" he asked, his voice rough from silence. Clara stood and walked to the cupboard. "I used to." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy, shared, understood. She didn't elaborate and he didn't ask. Instead, she came back with a bottle of children's ibuprofen she hadn't touched in months, maybe a year. She checked the expiration date. Still good. She offered a dose to Noah, who gently coaxed his son into taking it. Within minutes, Liam's breathing eased, his eyes closing fully for the first time. He shifted in his sleep, murmuring something incoherent before settling into a deeper rest. Noah sat there for a while, not moving. Clara sat in the old chair opposite them, sipping tea, watching, waiting. Finally, he spoke. I didn't know where else to go. She nodded slowly, letting him continue. I used to be someone, he said, eyes fixed on the sleeping boy. Had a job, a good one, wore suits, made deals, all that success nonsense. He gave a quiet laugh, but it held no humor. But when my wife died last year, everything just kind of fell apart. She was the glue, the reason I came home. Clara's throat tightened. She didn't speak, just listened. I tried to keep it all together for Liam, for her. But grief, he shook his head, it has claws. He swallowed hard. We lost the house 6 months ago. I thought we'd be okay. I mean, I'm smart. I could figure it out. But things happen. People stop answering calls. Job offers dry up. I ended up driving Uber to keep us fed. Then the car broke down last week. He rubbed his hands over his face, sighing into his palms. That's how we ended up here. Nowhere left to go. There was a long pause. Clara finally set down her mug and stood. She walked to the hallway, opened the door to the spare room, the room that hadn't been used since her daughter passed. You and Liam can sleep here, she said quietly. Noah looked up, startled. You don't even know me. I know enough, she replied. He hesitated, searching her face for judgment, for suspicion. There was none, just compassion. Thank you, he whispered again. She turned to go, but paused in the doorway. He reminds me of her, she said softly. She had the same way of smiling in her sleep, like the world hadn't touched her yet. And then she left him there, standing in the room with his sleeping child and the ghosts of grief dancing with his own. That night, Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She wasn't sure why she'd opened the door, why she'd let two strangers step into her life again after so much pain. But maybe this wasn't about fixing anything. Maybe it was about healing, not with noise, but with kindness. The next morning would come with new questions. She still didn't know the full truth about who Noah really was or what brought him crashing down. But she would find out, and what she'd discover would change her life forever. The smell of pancakes filled the house before the sun had even fully risen. Clara stood at the old stove, flipping the final pancake onto a chipped ceramic plate. Her hands moved with practiced rhythm, but her mind was a swirl of questions. She didn't sleep much last night. How could she? A stranger, a man she knew nothing about, was asleep down the hall with his sick child. Every reasonable instinct told her she should be worried, but she wasn't. She was curious and something else. Hopeful? She wiped her hands on a towel and turned as soft footsteps echoed down the hall. Liam appeared first, his little face pale but smiling, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders like a superhero's cape. He looked so small in the doorway, rubbing his eyes with a tiny fist. Behind him came Noah. His hair was still damp from the shower Clara had offered. He looked different now, cleaner but somehow even more tired. There was something in his eyes this morning, something heavier. Morning, Clara said, offering a warm smile she hadn't used in a long time. There's food. Liam's eyes lit up at the sight of pancakes. He scampered toward the table like his legs had just remembered how to be 6 years old again. Do you like syrup? She asked. Do I? Liam grinned, his teeth a little crooked. Mama used to call me Captain Syrup Face. Clara paused slightly at the mention of his mother. Noah must have noticed because his eyes lowered and his hand instinctively rested on the boy's head. Clara placed the plate in front of Liam and quietly poured a cup of tea for Noah. He took it wordlessly. Thank you, he said after a moment. She nodded. Did you sleep? Some, he replied. Better than I have in weeks, honestly. They sat in silence for a few beats, watching Liam devour pancake after pancake as if it were his first real meal in days. Clara finally spoke. I know it's none of my business, but what's your plan now? Noah looked up as if the question had physically struck him. Honestly? He chuckled, but it was hollow. I don't have one. I was hoping to make it to my sister's in Vermont, but she hasn't returned my messages in over a week. I think she's done trying to help. Clara stirred her tea slowly. Family gets tired sometimes, but that doesn't mean they stop loving you. Noah looked out the window. Rain still streaked the glass. I've made a lot of mistakes, he admitted. Too many. Like what? He looked at her, caught off guard by her boldness, but instead of retreating, he exhaled, long and slow. Maybe he needed to say it out loud. I married young, straight out of college. I was ambitious, too ambitious. I had something to prove. Built a tech startup from nothing. We were doing well, investors, offices, people working under me. But I was never home, never really present. His voice dropped to a whisper. Then she got sick. Cancer. Out of nowhere. Stage 4. Clara's stomach sank. I sold everything to pay for her treatments. Burned through every dollar, every option, every connection I had. And when she died, I didn't care about anything anymore. He looked at Liam then, his voice trembling. I forgot how to be a father. I was angry, depressed, made promises I couldn't keep. Slept in shelters, cheap motels, sometimes our car. Every day became about surviving the next. I kept saying I'd fix it, that I'd find something, but I didn't. Clara blinked, surprised by the lump in her own throat. She understood loss. Too well. She reached over and gently set her hand atop his, her touch warm and steady. You're here now. That counts. Liam, oblivious to the heavy air around him, looked up from his plate. Miss Clara, can I help with the dishes? Clara smiled through the tears as she quickly blinked away. Of course you can, sweetheart. That would be very grown-up of you. Noah watched his son carry his plate to the sink with care, humming softly under his breath. He's strong, Clara said softly. Noah nodded. Stronger than I deserve. Don't say that, she said, her voice suddenly firm. You stayed. That counts for more than you know. He swallowed hard, and for a second, Clara saw a flicker of something else in his expression. Relief, like hearing those words gave him a piece of himself back. After breakfast, Clara gave Liam a coloring book and some old crayons she kept in a drawer she hadn't opened in a year. Noah helped clear the table, insisting on washing every dish. He didn't feel like a guest anymore. Later that morning, Clara went to her small garden behind the house. It wasn't much, just a few tomato plants, some herbs, a stubborn rose bush, but it was hers. She crouched to tend the soil, her fingers digging into the earth. The world was quiet for a while. Then came the sound of soft footsteps on the gravel. Noah joined her, sleeves rolled, eyes squinting in the sun. I haven't done this in years, he said, kneeling beside her. Good, it's about time you started again. They worked in silence, hands side by side in the dirt. No masks, no performance. Just two people who had broken in very different ways, trying, quietly, wordlessly, to start piecing things back together. You know, Clara said as she pulled a weed from the base of the rose bush, this garden was dead 2 years ago. Noah raised an eyebrow. Looks pretty alive to me now. I didn't think I could bring it back, but I kept showing up, watering, trying. It didn't look like progress at first, just mud. But slowly things changed. She didn't need to explain the metaphor. He understood. That evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the sky to gold, Clara sat on the porch, watching Liam draw with chalk on the sidewalk. Dragons, capes, and a spaceship that looked suspiciously like a toaster. Noah joined her, bringing a warm cup of tea. I called a friend today, he said, an old colleague from my company. We hadn't spoken in a year. He picked up. Clara's eyes widened slightly. That's good. He's in town, said he'd meet me tomorrow. Might have a lead on some work. She smiled. Sounds like hope. I don't know what will come of it, but it felt good, being seen again. Clara looked at him then. Really looked. There was still pain there, yes, but he also something else. A spark. He hadn't told her everything yet. There was more to his story, layers unspoken, but she didn't need to know it all now. She just needed to know this. He was trying. That night, as she tucked Liam into the old guest bed and kissed his forehead like he was her own, she whispered, You're safe here. He smiled up at her sleepily. You're like an angel, he said. Daddy says sometimes angels don't have wings. They just show up when you need them. Clara's heart cracked open, spilling light into places that had been dark too long. Outside the door, Noah leaned against the wall, having overheard everything. His eyes were wet. He didn't say a word. But when Clara stepped out, he met her gaze and whispered, "Thank you for believing in someone who stopped believing in himself." And she said with the quiet wisdom of someone who'd known great pain, "We don't heal alone, Noah. Nobody does." As the house settled into silence that night, Clara knew something had shifted. This wasn't just a temporary shelter anymore. It was the beginning of something bigger. Neither of them knew it yet, but this one act of kindness was about to change both of their lives forever. The rain had stopped, but the sky still hung heavy and gray. Clara stood at the window, drying a mug with slow, thoughtful movements. She watched Noah through the glass. He was pacing near the end of her gravel driveway, phone pressed tightly to his ear. His expression was tense, jaw tight, brows furrowed like he was holding the world together with sheer willpower. She could tell it wasn't good news. Inside, Liam sat at the kitchen table, drawing quietly. He was humming a tune Clara didn't recognize. Every now and then, he glanced toward the window, his small face clouding over when he saw his father's silhouette. "Miss Clara," he asked softly, "do you think Daddy's okay?" She turned, her smile warm but laced with concern. "I think your dad is trying really hard, sweetheart. Sometimes trying looks a little like worrying." Liam nodded solemnly and returned to his drawing. Outside, Noah's call ended. He stood there for a moment, unmoving, phone still in his hand. Then slowly he turned and walked back toward the house. Clara met him at the door. "Coffee?" she offered. Noah gave a small nod. "Yeah, that'd be nice." Once they were seated, Noah sighed and rested his elbows on the table, rubbing his temples. "Bad call?" Clara asked gently. He nodded. "My friend tried, he really did. But the company has downsized. There's no job waiting." Clara felt that familiar ache in her chest, the sting of watching someone try so hard, only to be met with another closed door. Noah leaned back in his chair. "I don't know what I expected. Maybe some miracle where everything just started working out again. Like I could fix it all in one move." She looked at him for a long moment. "You don't have to fix everything at once, Noah. Sometimes the most important part is just showing up." His eyes met hers, tired but grateful. "You sound like you've had practice with this." "I have," she admitted. "Different circumstances, but the feeling is familiar." Noah hesitated, then asked, "What happened to you, Clara, if you don't mind me asking?" She took a long breath and stared out the window for a moment before speaking. "I lost my son 5 years ago. Car accident. He was 7. Noah's face fell. He opened his mouth to respond, but she lifted her hand to stop him gently. "You don't need to say anything. I've made peace with the silence people offer when they don't know what to say. There are no words for something like that." The room felt still, sacred. "I left the city after that," Clara continued. "Got tired of the looks, the pity, bought this place with what was left of the insurance. I wanted quiet. I wanted to disappear." Noah's voice was soft. "But you didn't." She gave him a small, sad smile. "No, I kept showing up. For the garden, for the house, for the memory of him. It took a long time, but eventually, I started breathing again." They sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm. Then came a knock at the door. Clara frowned. She rarely had visitors. She opened the door to find a stern-looking woman with perfectly ironed slacks and a clipboard clutched in one hand. Her smile was professionally tight. "Miss Clara Bennett?" "Yes," Clara replied cautiously. "I'm from Child Protective Services. We've received a report that a minor is residing on the property without appropriate guardianship." The air left Clara's lungs. Noah appeared behind her and, "What? No, that's not—" The woman's tone was calm but firm. "We're not here to accuse anyone, Mr. Evans. We're simply here to assess the situation and ensure the child is in a safe, legal environment." Liam peeked around the corner, sensing the tension. Clara quickly ushered him back into the kitchen, her voice steady but low. "Go finish your drawing, sweetheart." Noah looked like someone had reached inside his chest and pulled everything out. I didn't mean to cause trouble, he said, turning to Clara, his voice shaking. I swear I just needed one night. Clara reached for his hand. We'll figure this out. Together. The caseworker stepped inside, clipboard in hand. Can we speak privately, Mr. Evans? Noah nodded and followed her out to the porch. Inside, Clara sat down beside Liam and picked up a red crayon. Tell me about your spaceship, she said, trying to keep her voice calm, but her hands trembled slightly. Liam smiled proudly, explaining all the different buttons and gadgets he'd imagined. His imagination knew no limits. It broke her heart. Outside, she could hear the low murmur of conversation. Noah explaining, pleading, defending himself. Then silence. Then footsteps. The caseworker stepped back inside. Thank you for your time, Miss Bennett. We're going to conduct a follow-up inspection tomorrow. In the meantime, I recommend Mr. Evans find alternative accommodations for the child until his legal status can be verified. Noah looked devastated. Clara stepped forward. He's not a danger. That child is safe, fed, cared for. Doesn't that count for anything? I'm sorry, the woman said. I'm just doing my job. And with that, she left. Noah collapsed onto the couch like a man who'd been punched. Liam stayed in the kitchen, coloring quietly but with a frown that didn't belong on a child's face. I don't have anywhere to take him, Noah said hoarsely. I have nothing left. Clara sat beside him. You have me. He looked up, eyes searching hers for signs of doubt. I'm not going to let them take that boy from his father, she said firmly. We'll figure it out. That night, after Liam fell asleep, Clara found Noah on the back porch. He was holding a letter in his hand, creased and smudged like it had been carried for weeks. What's that? She asked. He hesitated, then handed it to her. She unfolded it and began reading. It was a letter addressed to him from his late wife. It was dated the night before she passed away. Noah, I know you're scared. I know you feel like you've failed. But I need you to remember this. You were always trying. That matters more than you'll ever understand. Liam doesn't need a perfect father. He needs a present one, a kind one, a man who keeps showing up even when it's hard. If you're reading this, then I'm already gone, but you're still here, and that means there's still time. Don't run from your pain, Noah. Don't bury it. Hold it. Own it. And then build something new with it, something beautiful. You always said I was the brave one, but it's your turn now. Be brave enough to begin again. Love, Ava. Clara folded the letter slowly, eyes brimming with tears. She believed in you, she said. Noah nodded, blinking quickly. I didn't believe in myself. You will, Clara whispered. One day at a time. The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. But here, on this porch, something sacred had shifted again. It wasn't the end. It was the moment before everything changed. And for the first time in a long time, they both dared to hope. The air was too still. It was the kind of silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the breath before a storm. Clara stood in the kitchen, staring down at the coffee pot, the steam rising like a ghost of routine. She hadn't slept much. None of them had. Upstairs, Liam still slept curled into a tight ball in Clara's guest room, one small hand tucked under his cheek. His spaceship drawing sat beside him on the nightstand, the red crayon still clutched in his fingers. A dreamer, even in sleep. Too young for the world to be weighing on him like this. Noah sat at the table, eyes bloodshot, staring into the same cold mug of coffee he hadn't touched since last night. He used to love pancakes, he said quietly, breaking the silence. Clara turned slightly, unsure if he was speaking to her or to the ghost of a happier time. Before Ava got sick, he'd wake up on Saturdays just to help her stir the batter. He called it love cakes, said they tasted better when you smiled while making them. His voice cracked at the memory. Clara swallowed hard. Then maybe that's what we make today. He looked up. She was already reaching for the flour, cracking eggs into a bowl. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a plan. But it was something. And sometimes something was enough to keep going. As the scent of warm pancakes filled the house, Liam padded into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, buddy," Noah said, forcing a smile. Liam's face brightened when he saw the pancakes. "Are these for me?" Clara leaned down with a plate. "Only if you promise to eat them with a smile." "I can do that," he giggled, hopping into a chair. For a few stolen minutes, they laughed. They poured syrup, argued over the best pancake shape, and made sticky messes that didn't matter. For a few minutes, they were just a family. But the knock on the door shattered it. Clara's body tensed before the sound had even fully registered. She glanced at the clock. 9:07 a.m. Punctual. Too punctual. Noah stood slowly, his shoulders drawing up like armor. Liam looked up in confusion. "Who's that?" Clara squeezed his hand. "Stay here, sweetheart. Finish your love cakes." She opened the door. The CPS caseworker was back, clipboard in hand, same cold professionalism in her eyes. But this time, a uniformed officer stood beside her. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Evans?" Clara stepped aside, though her instincts screamed to slam the door and shield them all. "We're here to follow up," the woman said, "and take temporary protective custody of the child until his living situation can be verified." Liam had wandered into the hallway, half a pancake in hand, unaware of the weight crashing toward him. Clara knelt down quickly, pulling him gently toward her. "Hey, baby, do you remember the lady from yesterday?" Liam nodded, eyes narrowing. "She's just going to ask you a few questions. I'll be right here, okay?" The boy hesitated. "Is she mad at Daddy?" "No, sweetie," Noah said softly, kneeling beside them now. "No one's mad. They just need to make sure we're all okay." But his voice shook. The caseworker asked to speak to Liam alone, and Clara's stomach twisted. As they led him into the living room, the officer remained behind, watching Noah with the eyes of someone trained to expect danger, even when none was present. Noah didn't speak. He didn't move. He stood frozen, a man watching his life fracture again in slow motion. 10 agonizing minutes passed. When they finally returned, the caseworker knelt beside Liam. "Thank you for talking to me, Liam. You're very brave." "Can I go back to my pancakes now?" he asked, innocent and eager. Her face softened for just a moment. "In a second, sweetheart." She stood, turning back to Clara and Noah. "We'll need to conduct a full review. Interviews, background checks, living condition evaluations. Until then, the child will be placed in temporary care." Noah stepped forward, desperation in every line of his body. "Please, don't take him. He's all I have left." Clara put a hand on his arm. The officer shifted. "I'm not a criminal," Noah said firmly, louder now. "I lost my wife. I lost my job, but I never stopped trying. I never stopped being his father." Clara's voice was calm but unwavering. "You said you needed to ensure Liam is in a safe environment. Look around. This boy is clean, fed, happy. He has a roof over his head. He's not a case number. He's a child. And this man, his father, is fighting harder than most would." The caseworker hesitated just slightly. "Let me take guardianship," Clara said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "I have no record. A stable home. I can file for emergency custody until Noah is cleared. That boy doesn't belong in the system. He belongs with someone who knows his bedtime song and how much syrup he likes on his pancakes." The caseworker stared at her, stunned. Noah's voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you do that for us?" Clara turned to him, eyes wet. "Because someone should have done it for me when I lost my son." There was silence. Then slowly the caseworker nodded. "I'll need to make some calls, but it's possible." A flurry of paperwork followed. Forms, calls, signatures, legal terms Clara barely understood but signed anyway because what mattered wasn't ink on paper. It was the boy in the other room coloring a rocket ship and still smiling like the world hadn't tried to steal his childhood twice in a row. Hours later, they were alone again. Noah leaned against the doorway, watching Clara as she folded a soft blanket over the back of the couch. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You don't have to," she replied. "Just keep showing up." He walked toward her, eyes full of something unspoken. Fear, gratitude, guilt, hope. Why are you doing this, really? He asked. I mean, I'm just a man who knocked on your door with a hungry kid and nowhere to go. She looked at him then, really looked. Because when I lost everything, she said slowly, I used to lie awake at night wishing someone would knock on my door. Not to fix me, not to save me, just to remind me I wasn't alone. Noah looked like he might cry, but he didn't. He just nodded and reached for her hand, squeezing it. The storm had not passed. The future was still uncertain. But tonight, Liam would sleep in his own bed, safe, warm, loved. And somewhere inside that quiet farmhouse, hope had bloomed again. The wind howled that night, not the gentle kind that sings through the trees, but the kind that creeps along the walls of a quiet house, whispering things you're too afraid to say out loud. Clara lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as shadows danced across it from the branches outside her window. Down the hall, she could hear the faint rhythm of Liam's breathing. Safe, steady, for now. But in the next room, there was another sound, restless footsteps, the quiet creak of floorboards under the weight of a man who hadn't known rest in months. Noah. Clara threw the blanket off and slipped out of bed, her bare feet touching the cold wood floor. She followed the dim glow of the hallway light until she reached the guest room door. It was ajar. She saw him standing by the window, shirt wrinkled from sleep he hadn't found, shoulders slumped forward. You ever think the universe hates you? He said softly without turning around. Clara leaned against the doorframe. More times than I'll admit out loud. He turned, eyes tired but grateful for the company. I thought when they let Liam stay here, I'd finally sleep. But now it's worse, like I'm waiting for the knock I know is still coming. Clara stepped inside, crossing the room slowly. There's no knock tonight. He didn't answer, just looked out the window again, like something out there could explain the mess life had become. I lied to her, he said after a pause. Clara's brows furrowed. To the caseworker? No, to Liam. His voice broke. I told him everything was going to be okay. She took another step. That's not a lie. That's hope. No, he said, shaking his head. Hope is when you believe it. I don't. Not yet. Not when I have no home, no answers. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was honest. Then slowly Noah sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, face in his hands. I was a good father, Clara, he whispered, before everything fell apart. I know. I used to do all the voices when I read bedtime stories. I'd build cardboard forts so big, our living room looked like a war zone. Ava would laugh and roll her eyes, but she loved it. He smiled sadly. I wasn't just doing it for Liam. I was doing it for her, too. Clara sat beside him, shoulders brushing. You're still that father. The fact that you're here proves it. He turned toward her then, slowly, like he was afraid of what he'd see in her eyes. But what he found wasn't pity. It was recognition. You know what it's like, don't you, he asked, to lose something and keep pretending you're still whole? Clara nodded. I used to sit in my son's empty room for hours, just arranging toys that would never be played with again. Her voice cracked on the word again. I didn't want to move on, she continued, because it felt like betrayal. Like if I smiled again, it meant I was okay with him being gone. They sat there in the quiet, broken in the same places, hearts beating in sync with old wounds. You saved me, Noah said finally. You didn't have to, but you did. Clara smiled gently. You saved yourself. I just opened a door. He looked down, exhaling slowly. I want to make it right. For Liam. For Ava. Then start here. With a fresh breath, a new page. Just then they heard a small voice in the hallway. Daddy? Liam stood at the door, eyes wide and sleepy, his blanket trailing behind him. I had a bad dream. Noah stood immediately, kneeling to scoop him up into his arms. What was it about, buddy? He asked, gently wiping Liam's cheek. There was a big storm, and I couldn't find you. Everything was loud and dark. I was calling for you, but no one came. Noah's voice caught in his throat. He kissed Liam's forehead. I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere. Clara stood and pulled the blanket off the chair. Come on, why don't we all go downstairs? Warm milk and a story might help. In the kitchen, under the soft hum of the fridge and the gentle ticking of the old clock, they huddled together on the couch. Noah read from a worn children's book with faded pages in a torn corner. Clara sat beside them, her hand resting lightly on Liam's back. By the end of the story, Liam was fast asleep, his head on Noah's chest, his fingers tangled in his father's shirt. Noah didn't move. Clara leaned closer, whispering, "You can stay as long as you need." He looked up, emotion thick in his eyes. "Clara, I know this can't be easy for you either. Letting strangers into your home, into your life. You're not strangers anymore." Just then, her phone buzzed on the counter. She got up to check it. Unknown number. One new message. "He's not who you think he is. Ask him why he left Chicago." Her heart skipped. She read it again, slower. A chill crept down her spine. When she turned back toward Noah, he was watching her. "Everything okay?" he asked. Clara forced a smile. "Yeah, just junk." But the seed of doubt had been planted. And deep down, she knew tomorrow would come with questions. And maybe answers she wasn't ready for. Morning came too quietly. The kind of quiet that presses against your skin and lets you know something's about to shift. Clara stood in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea, but the steam rising didn't chase away the chill crawling through her bones. The message was still on her phone. She'd read it 3 times since waking up. "He's not who you think he is. Ask him why he left Chicago." She hadn't slept. Not really. Her mind had spiraled all night, looping through what she knew about Noah and, more disturbingly, what she didn't. He had never mentioned Chicago, never spoken about what happened before Ava died, never explained why a man so good with his son had lost custody. And until last night, she'd been too focused on surviving the day-to-day to question it. But now, the doubt sat in her chest like a stone. "Morning?" His voice made her jump. She turned to find Noah entering the kitchen, Liam still half asleep on his shoulder. The little boy was wrapped in the same blanket, thumb in his mouth, cheek pressed to his father's neck. The sight was heartbreakingly tender. "Hey," she said, quickly stuffing the phone into her sweater pocket. "Sleep okay?" He gave a small nod, adjusting Liam gently as he sat at the table. "Better than usual." Clara poured a second cup of tea, pretending her hands weren't trembling. "Do you want coffee instead?" "No, this is fine." They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound the distant ticking of the kitchen clock. Clara studied his face as he stroked Liam's back, the soft affection in his movements. She wanted to believe in him, wanted to believe that a man who kissed his son's forehead like that couldn't possibly be hiding something dark. But then again, people wore masks, some so good you never saw the seams. Finally, she cleared her throat. "Noah, I was thinking, you never told me where you came from before all this." He didn't look up. "We moved around a lot." She tried to keep her voice casual. "Were you ever in Chicago?" The change was immediate. His hand stopped moving, his shoulders tensed. His eyes didn't meet hers. "That's a long story," he said quietly. Clara's breath caught. "I've got time." Noah carefully shifted Liam onto the chair beside him and stood. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window and stared out like he was searching for something in the trees. "I was working construction out there," he began, "back before Ava got sick. I took a night shift job, dangerous, but it paid more. We needed it. Medical bills were insane." Clara nodded slowly, waiting. "One night, a guy on site went down. No harness, nothing. He didn't make it." His voice cracked. "They blamed me, said I hadn't checked his equipment. But I did, Clara. I swear I did." Her heart thudded. "What happened?" "There was an investigation. I was suspended, but charges were dropped. Still, no one wanted to hire me after that. Word spread fast in that town. People called me careless, said I was a danger, even though I wasn't." His fist clenched at his sides. Ava was already fighting for her life, and now we had no income. Liam was just a baby. I was drowning. One night I lost it at the ER. One of the nurses said something cruel. I snapped. Security got involved. Clara's chest tightened. Were you arrested? He nodded. Misdemeanor, disturbing the peace. But Ava was so ashamed, not of me, of our life falling apart. She never said it, but I saw it in her eyes. She hated that we'd become people who made scenes in hospitals. He finally turned to look at her, eyes brimming with years of pain. After she died, her sister filed for emergency guardianship of Liam, said I was unstable, unsafe, that my record made me unfit. And did it. I never laid a hand on him. Never would. But the system doesn't care about wood. They care about paperwork. Clara's breath hitched. Why didn't you fight harder? I did. His voice dropped. But I had nothing left. No balm, no home, no lawyer. I was a broken man in a courtroom full of people who only saw the headlines. She felt something deep in her chest shift. I didn't run, he said. I lost. And then one day I couldn't take the loss anymore. So I took Liam and left. Clara leaned against the counter, processing everything. I should have told you, he whispered. I didn't because I didn't want to see that look in your eyes, the one everyone else gives me. She walked toward him slowly. You're not perfect, but you're not a monster either. He nodded once, like he couldn't trust his voice anymore. Then he said something that made her stomach turn. But someone doesn't want me to be here. They're watching. They sent that message, didn't they? Clara froze. How did you? I saw your face this morning. I've seen that look before. You were afraid, but not of me, of something else. She pulled her phone from her pocket and handed it to him. He read the message, jaw tightening. I don't know who sent it, she said softly, but it means someone knows where you are. A long pause, then Noah said something that chilled her to her core. If they know where I am, that means they're close, and they want Liam back. The room filled with a heavy silence. Clara sat down, her legs shaky. What do we do? Noah's eyes darkened with resolve. We get ready. That night, Clara locked every door and window twice. Noah stayed up late, moving through the house silently, checking exits, memorizing creaks in the floorboards, watching the street through parted blinds. He wasn't running anymore, but he wasn't going to let his guard down either. In the early hours, while the world was still sleeping, Clara stood in the hallway watching him. And something strange happened. She didn't feel fear anymore. She felt something stronger. Trust. Not blind trust, not naive trust, but the kind of trust you give someone who's cracked open their soul and handed you the pieces. Ugly, sharp, broken. And still asked you to hold them. The knock came at 4:12 a.m. Not the kind of knock that came from someone unsure or polite. No, it was firm, precise, like whoever stood on the other side of that door already knew exactly what they wanted. Clara shot up from her bed, heart thudding against her ribs like a war drum. For a split second, she thought she had dreamt it. But then came the second knock, 3 hard raps, the kind that slices through silence like a blade. She scrambled out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold floor as she grabbed her robe. She could already hear Noah moving. Quick, quiet footsteps from the guest room. When they met in the hallway, neither had to speak. Their eyes did all the talking. They found us. Clara's throat went dry. Do you think it's... I don't know, Act. His voice was hoarse but steady. Stay behind me. Downstairs, the knock came again, this time with more insistence. Liam's room was dark and still, the soft rise and fall of his breath, the only proof that a child slept just feet away from danger. Noah crept to the living room and looked through the peephole. His entire body went rigid. Clara couldn't help herself. Who is it? Noah turned, jaw clenched. It's her. Who? My sister-in-law. Clara blinked. What? Noah didn't answer right away. He opened the door but left the chain lock on. Standing on the porch, under the sickly glow of the porch light, was a woman in a trench coat, hair tied in a tight knot, face pinched from fatigue or fury, or both. Noah, she said, arms crossed, are you going to let me in? No, Maggie, I'm not. Her expression barely flickered. I'm not here to fight. No, you're here to take Liam. That hit her like a slap. You kidnapped him. Don't turn this around. I saved him, Noah growled. You think your husband could have raised him better? The man who called Liam a burden at Ava's funeral? Maggie's face paled, but she held her ground. I'm not here to debate parenting. I'm here because you left a child without legal custody, and that's a crime in every state. From behind Noah, Clara finally spoke. You tracked him here? Maggie's gaze shifted to her. She took in Clara's tired eyes, the way her robe hung loose at the collar, her bare feet on the hardwood. You're Clara, Maggie said, the woman who let a fugitive sleep under her roof. Noah stepped in front of her. Leave her out of this. Maggie ignored him. Do you even know what he did back in Chicago? Did he tell you about the restraining order? The hospital security incident? The CPS report? Clara's stomach turned. I know what I need to know. You know the version he gave you. Maggie, Noah interrupted, voice sharp. If you think barging into this house in the middle of the night is going to change anything, you're wrong. She took a breath, almost faltering. I didn't come with the police. That surprised him. She glanced down. I came alone because I needed to see it for myself. I needed to see if what Ava said about you was still true. He narrowed his eyes. And what was that? That you were a good father, just broken. Silence stretched between them. Noah's grip on the door loosened slightly. He didn't open it, but something in his expression cracked. Maggie's voice softened. Do you have any idea what you've done to me these past 6 months? I've been questioned, followed, blamed. I covered for you longer than I should have. I thought, maybe grief made you snap, but this? Her hand trembled slightly. This isn't grief anymore. This is war. He sighed. Then why are you here without backup? Because, she said, voice breaking for the first time, I'm tired too. And I wanted to believe Liam was okay, that you weren't the villain I painted you as. Clara watched as Noah closed his eyes, breath shuddering. I have proof he's safe, Maggie continued. Photos, anonymous tips. Hell, the school sent me a certificate with his name on it. Honor roll. I nearly lost it when I saw it. Noah looked back at Clara, whose eyes welled. I miss Ava every day, Maggie said, barely above a whisper. And I hated you for a long time. But tonight, I stood outside and listened to your son talk in his sleep. He said, Dad says monsters don't win if you don't run. Noah's hand dropped from the lock. I don't know if that makes you a hero, Maggie continued, but it makes you a father again. A beat of silence passed. Then slowly he opened the door. Not wide, but enough. Maggie stepped in, not as a threat anymore, but as something else. A witness. Noah led her to the kitchen, where the three of them sat around the table in the soft hum of morning light. No one raised their voice. No one threw accusations. Just stories, raw and broken, spilled across steaming cups of black coffee. Noah told her everything, this time without filters, the mistakes, the pain, the hopelessness, and Maggie, to her own surprise, listened. When the clock hit 6:00 a.m., Claire excused herself to check on Liam. The boy had woken, rubbing his eyes, asking for pancakes. Clara crouched beside him and whispered, There's someone here to see your dad. Do you want to meet her? Liam nodded. A moment later, he was padding into the kitchen, his little socked feet quiet on the floor. When he saw Maggie, he tilted his head. You look like my mom, he said softly. Maggie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Hi, Liam. He looked at Noah, then back at her. Are you family? Yes, she whispered. I'm your Aunt Maggie. Liam nodded thoughtfully. Dad said we didn't have family anymore. Maggie's eyes welled up. That was my fault. The boy blinked, then walked over and gently placed a crayon drawing in her lap. You can have this. It's us. I drew it yesterday. In it, a stick figure version of himself stood between a man and a woman. All three had big smiles. At the top, in block letters, were the words, No monsters allowed. Maggie's breath hitched. She looked up at Noah, then at Clara, then back at Liam. And in that moment, the years of anger, the months of searching, the courtroom scars, they faded just enough to let something new in. Peace. Later that morning, after Liam was back in bed for a nap, Maggie stood at the front door with her coat half on. "I'm not going to report this," she said, "but you need to come back. Soon." Noah didn't argue. "I'll talk to a lawyer, see if we can revisit the custody ruling with new evidence. You'll have to explain everything, again, but this time I'll stand with you." He nodded. "Thank you." Then hesitantly she leaned in and hugged him. Not out of forgiveness, out of recognition, of a man who fell, yes, but who never stopped trying to stand back up. When the door closed behind her, Clara turned to him. "You okay?" Noah took a deep breath. "For the first time in years, I think I might be." The house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that settles right after something enormous breaks, like the stillness after a wave crashes. You could feel the tension in the floorboards, in the air, in the space between breaths. Clara stood at the kitchen sink, her fingers motionless under running water, a half-washed plate forgotten in her hands. The light of dawn filtered through the window, soft and golden, but it didn't warm her. Her mind replayed every second of Maggie's visit, the way Liam had looked at her, the way Noah had dropped his guard for the first time, and the way she, Clara, had felt invisible in that moment, a bystander in a family reunion she wasn't sure she belonged in. Behind her, she heard slow footsteps. Noah entered the kitchen, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes bloodshot. He looked like a man who'd barely slept, but carried a weight heavier than any nightmare. "She's gone," he said quietly, leaning on the counter. Clara didn't respond. She turned off the faucet but didn't turn around. He tried again. "She left a note, said she'd be back in touch." Still nothing. Noah stepped closer, now watching her with concern. "You okay?" That did it. Clara set the plate down, turned to him, and asked the one question that had been gnawing at her since the sun came up. "Are you going back?" Noah's face tensed. "Clara." "No, I need to know." Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with restraint. Was all of this just temporary? A hiding place until someone opened the right door? He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time in weeks, she saw uncertainty in his eyes. Not guilt, not fear, just lostness. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice a rasp. That answer hit harder than a no. She stepped back, arms folding around herself as if bracing for impact. "I let you into my home. I let you into my son's life. I let myself start believing in you, Noah. I didn't ask for that. But you didn't stop it either." The words hung between them, sharp as glass. Noah opened his mouth, then closed it. He rubbed his face with both hands, pacing the length of the kitchen like a caged animal. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said finally. "When I showed up here, I just needed a place to breathe. Somewhere my son could sleep without waking up screaming." Clara blinked hard, willing back tears. "And now?" "I don't know what I am without him," Noah said. "But I also don't know what I'm doing here. I'm scared, Clara. Every part of this, Maggie, court, custody, it's a storm waiting to hit again. And I'm just one man holding an umbrella made of paper." She stepped closer, her voice softer now. "You think you're the only one scared?" He looked at her, pain raw on his face. "I've been scared since the moment I met you," she said. "Scared because you walked in carrying grief like armor and kindness like a weapon. Scared because Liam looked at me like I was someone safe. And I didn't know if I could be that for him." Noah's jaw clenched. "You have been. You still are." Clara shook her head. "But I can't be just a shelter. I can't keep pretending this isn't real just because you don't know what to do with it." The silence returned, but it was louder now. Noah ran his hand through his hair, stepped toward her, and for a moment his expression cracked wide open. "I want to stay," he said, "but I don't know how to let myself." Clara stared at him, then did something she hadn't done in a long time. She reached up, touched his cheek, and whispered, "Then learn." And with that, she turned and walked upstairs, leaving Noah standing there with her words echoing in his chest. Later that day, Clara drove Liam to school. The boy sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, staring out the window at passing trees. His backpack sat in his lap, fingers playing with the zipper. Mom, he said suddenly. Yeah, baby? Is Dad in trouble? Clara's hands tightened on the wheel. Why do you ask that? Because Aunt Maggie came in the middle of the night, he said. People don't come in the dark unless something bad's happening. Clara glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Your dad's not in trouble, she said carefully, but he's got some hard things to deal with. Grown-up things, complicated things. Liam nodded, but his little face was serious. Will he have to leave? The question cut deeper than she expected. Clara blinked rapidly and gave him the most honest answer she could. I don't know, but I do know this. Your dad loves you more than anything. That's not going to change. Liam looked out the window again, quiet for a moment. I heard him crying last night, he whispered. She swallowed. Yeah? Yeah, he said. I think dads cry when they think nobody's watching. That nearly shattered her. Clara pulled over, put the car in park, and turned around fully. She reached for Liam's hand and held it. You're a very smart kid, she said, and very kind, just like your dad. Liam gave a shy smile. Now go do your best today, okay? He nodded, then leaned forward and kissed her on the cheek. Meanwhile, back at the house, Noah stood in Liam's room, running his fingers over the boys' drawings taped on the wall. One of them showed stick figures again, 3 this time, with a dog that didn't exist but probably would someday. At the bottom, in blocky handwriting, me plus Dad plus Miss Clara, home. Noah sat on the edge of the bed and exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Could he really go back to court? Could he risk losing Liam again, this time for good? Could he stay? Every part of him screamed to leave before it hurt more. But another part, the quieter one, the one that still believed in people, wanted to fight. He stood, walked out, and found Clara in the backyard pulling weeds. She looked up when she heard him. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, awkward and heavy with unspoken things. I want to try, he said finally. She narrowed her eyes. Try what? To stay. Her hands froze in the dirt. I can't promise I'll get it all right, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight. But if there's a way I can be here, for Liam, for this house, maybe even for you, I want to try. Clara stood, brushing off her hands. She didn't move toward him, but she didn't move away either. I won't be your second chance, she said. I won't be your guilt bandage. I don't want you to be, Noah replied. I just want a chance to build something real. Clara studied him. You're still scared. Every minute, she gave a slow nod. Good. That means you care. Then slowly her hand reached for his. Fingers laced. Hope stitched itself quietly between palms. And for the first time since the storm began, they both looked up and saw a sliver of sky between the clouds. The envelope trembled in Clara's hand like it carried a beating heart. They had found Noah on the porch, hunched over, staring at the mail with a look she recognized only too well, fear mixed with longing. It was the same look he wore when charged with finding Liam's future alone. But for once, the envelope in his hand was not summons or failure. It was hope. She watched from the kitchen, where Liam sat at the table, sipping cocoa and watching his father with trusting eyes. That's all he ever had, trust. And Clara had promised herself they wouldn't break him. Noah moved slowly to the table, opening the envelope like it might burn him. Clara could see the strain in his shoulders, the knot in his neck. He was bracing himself for disappointment. Instead, he found crisp, official stationery, a letterhead from a firm he didn't recognize at first glance. Then he read Ava's handwriting. The calm, loving slant was unmistakable. It was dated the night before she died. He read it aloud, voice wavering until it caught steady. Noah, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. It was never your fault. You gave me everything you had until you had nothing left. But our son, he has your bravery, your heart. You may not see it now, but you carry a light that no darkness can swallow. I need you to remember that. Fight for him, for us. Choose us again, every day, even when it hurts. I will see you again. Love always, Ava. The kitchen felt too tight. Clara sank into a chair across the table from him, heart pounding. Liam slid off his seat and climbed into Noah's lap, sensing the weight of this moment. "Mommy," he whispered, "is Dad okay?" Clara swallowed hard. He's going to be stronger than ever. Noah folded the letter carefully, his hand shaking. "She knew," he whispered. "She always did." Then he stood, clutching the letter as if it were a life raft, and strode outside before Clara could reach him. The moon had climbed high when Clara found him, pacing in the rain-damp garden, the letter held close to his heart. "Don't hide it from me," she said softly, stepping into the moist grass. "Show me how this hurts." He turned, eyes red and glistening. "It's wrecking me, Clara. She believed in me, believed I'd choose Liam, even when I couldn't see past my own despair." Clara stepped forward and pulled him into an embrace. "She was right," she said firmly. "She still is." He closed his eyes. "I don't deserve her." "Yes, you do," Clara replied. "And he deserves you. Liam needs more than a father who survived. He needs one who chooses to stay, again and again." Noah's voice cracked. "I don't know if I can." "That letter was her gift to you. Let it keep giving." He nodded, resting his head on her shoulder. Rain soaked them, but something within began to kindle warmth, steady and quiet. Early that morning, Clara drove them to court. Liam sat between them, holding both their hands in his little fist. Noah stared out the window, silently running through everything. Clara placed her hand on his arm. "He's here with you," she whispered. "You got this." He nodded, half-smile forming. She saw him draw a breath like it steadied his heart. Then he climbed out of the car, one sure step at a time. Inside the courtroom, light filtered through tall windows, settling like a spotlight on their small family. They waited as their attorney spoke softly with the judge. Clara had offered to testify about the home, the love, the boy whose laughter filled empty rooms. She watched Noah's reflection in the polished wood, heard Liam's quiet hum, and felt her promise strengthen. When he was called, all eyes turned to him, the man accused, the father fighting to be heard. His voice was steady as he recounted nights like this. Coco in Liam's mug, the sting of loss, the promise sealed by Ava's final words. "I stand here because my son is my reason to fight. Failure is an option I no longer can afford." Time slowed. Then came Maggie's testimony, carrying Liam's drawing, tears in her eyes as she spoke of the child's joy, the letters, the kindness in every gesture. Courtroom cameras focused on her trembling voice, the same one she'd raised in anger, but now soft with understanding. Clara's turn came. She leaned forward, looking at her son and his father. "Liam laughs in this house. He's safe here. They are home." She paused, seeing the emotions in the judge's eyes. "It's more than legalities, it's love." Then silence, heavy with possibility. They stepped outside into the daylight, hands still linked. The air felt sweeter than it had in months. Noah handed Clara a folded sheet of official paper. Custody reinstated, joint with Clara's guardianship during the review period. Clara nearly dropped the papers, then held on as they dug into her palm. Liam asked, "Does this mean Daddy stays?" Noah lifted him high. "Yes, buddy, he stays." Clara's heart flooded, relief, pride, delight. She met Noah's eyes, and in that moment, they both knew they were stronger than the darkest nights and sharpest doubts. Later, back in the living room, they sat in a circle. Clara on the couch, Noah next to her, Liam in between, drawing. The rain's rhythm on the roof replaced the courtroom's hush. The envelope with Ava's letter lay safe in Noah's jacket pocket. They had fought fear, drought, silence, and won. Clara looked at Noah, then at Liam, then back. In a whisper, barely above the rain's beat, she said, "We're home." Noah squeezed her hand. Liam drew 3 figures smiling beneath the sun, and as the last stroke of crayon filled the page, Clara thought it wasn't just a drawing. It was their portrait. They stayed. They chose each other. And the world, for once, had let kindness prevail. A soft pink glow draped the small park as afternoon light filtered through fresh green leaves. The air carried the scent of new beginnings, blossoms, damp earth, chance. On one of the winding paths walked Noah, Liam and Clara, side by side. It was their first official family outing since the court's judgment. The moment sounded ordinary but felt monumental, like every footstep carried a promise. Liam led the way, hopping over a crack in the pavement, his laughter echoing between the trees. Clara followed, camera in hand, capturing the moment for their memories, even if their life was just starting to bloom. Noah strolled quietly, letting his gaze soften. These days felt surreal, a world he never imagined would be his again. Liam paused under a cherry blossom tree, blossoms drifting around him in the breeze. He shook out the petals like confetti, giggling as they rained down. Clara caught the moment with her camera. Noah crouched beside Liam, whispering, "Pretty cool, right?" Liam nodded towards his dad. "You're like the real superhero now." Noah's eyes shimmered. Clara spoke up. "Maybe all heroes need help." Noah nodded back, eyes on Clara, gratitude shining unspoken. They found a bench by a small ice cream cart. The line was short, but in that short wait, their bonding deepened. "Noah got chocolate mint," Clara whispered to Liam. "He did," Liam shouted, excitement bubbling like soda. Clara handed him a small scoop as a childhood memory from her own life. They watched him lick it slowly, savoring. Noah exhaled deeply. "I never had ice cream as a kid. My mom thought sugar would worsen allergies." Clara squeezed his hand. "Then you have a lifetime to catch up." He smiled. They resumed walking. A nearby bench called to them. Noah sat first. Clara joined beside him. Liam scampered away to chase a butterfly. Silence settled. Noah swallowed, breathing deep, the April breeze playing with his hair. "Clara," he started slowly, "I didn't want you to feel like my safety net." Clara watched him. "I was afraid to lean on anyone ever again," he admitted. "I thought trust was a weapon, one that always hurts." Clara reached for his hand. "Trust can heal too." Tears brimmed in his eyes. "I'm trying, Bait," he said, "for Liam. For us." Clara nodded. "Me too." By the path's bend, shafts of sunlight streaked through the leaves. Light and shadow played on Clara's face. Her eyes filled with a soft tenderness. "You saved us," Noah whispered. She squeezed his hand. "We saved each other." He looked into her eyes like he'd found a lifeline. They drifted from cherry trees toward open fields. Liam skipped ahead, his father trailing to match him. Clara lagged behind, camera quiet at her side. She watched Noah and Liam, connection without words. The scene felt like a living painting. They came to a small, wooden bridge over a narrow creek. The sound of water was gentle, steady. Liam crept ahead, peering over. Noah brushed a petal from Clara's hair. She closed her eyes, calm in this simple gesture. He shifted closer, then closer. Their lips met in a gentle, honest kiss. No grand flourish, just quiet promise. Liam giggled from behind. He'd seen it. Clara pulled back, laughing. "I love my superheroes." Noah wrapped her in his arms. Sunlight caught their shadows on the bridge. They walked on until pastel light faded into warmer tones. The park began to empty. They found themselves at the main gate. No dramatic speech. No one needed a signal. They held hands and stepped out, together. That night, Clara placed her camera on the bedside table. The last photo they'd taken was Noah, Liam, and herself, backs to the sunset, shadows long, hearts lighter. She lay awake, hand threading through Noah's. He pulled her closer. She whispered, "We built something real today." He kissed her forehead in the low light. Yes, together. Some journeys start with a knock. Some start by opening a door. But this journey, it began with a walk, quiet steps in new light, new rain, and a future they dared to hope in. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom, scattering soft pink petals across the narrow sidewalk like gentle confetti. A breeze stirred through the trees, cool and tender against flushed cheeks. The park was alive but hushed, children's laughter echoing in the distance, birds chirping overhead. But the heart of this story lived in the quiet space between three people walking side by side. Noah, once worn and hollow from years of fighting battles no one saw, walked a little straighter that day. His hand brushed the back of Liam's small shoulder as the boy skipped ahead, trying to catch falling petals in his palms. Beside them walked Clara, her camera hanging loosely around her neck. But her eyes were fixed not through a lens. Today, she wanted to feel everything with her heart. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't need to. Every step they took together said what words couldn't. We made it. But it hadn't always been like this. Just weeks earlier, Noah stood in a courtroom, staring at the judge with a clenched jaw, his hands sweating despite the cold inside the room. Clara had taken Liam's hand and squeezed. The hearing was silent but suffocating. Every second stretching across Noah's chest like a weight, and then words that changed everything. Full custody granted to Mr. Walker with support from Miss Rhodes as a legal guardian. Noah didn't cry in that moment. He did later, at home, when Liam fell asleep curled up against his side on the couch like it was the most natural place in the world. Clara had stood in the doorway that night, watching them with eyes full of something deeper than affection. She didn't say a word. She just walked over and put a blanket over both of them. That night, Noah had made a silent promise. Today was the beginning of that promise becoming real. "I've never been to a park like this," Liam said suddenly, turning to look up at them with wide eyes. "It smells like flowers and pancakes." Clara chuckled, ruffling his hair. "That's the cherry blossoms. They kind of smell like spring and sugar." Noah smiled, feeling his heart tighten with quiet joy. Watching Liam, his son, free, smiling, safe, it made every sleepless night and lonely tear worth it. "You okay?" Clara asked, glancing sideways. Noah nodded. "More than okay, I feel light." She reached over and took his hand. "You look it." They walked on like that for a while, hand in hand, Liam darting ahead and circling back, chattering about bugs and superheroes and whether pancakes counted as dessert. They came to a wooden bench by the pond. Ducks bobbed lazily on the surface. Liam climbed up on the edge of the bench and began narrating an imaginary story involving a duck detective and an evil turtle who stole breadcrumbs. Noah leaned back, arms stretching out behind Clara. "He's got your imagination." Clara smiled. "He's got your heart." He looked at her then, really looked. The way the sunlight kissed her hair, the way her eyes sparkled when she was amused, the faint freckles dancing across her cheeks. She hadn't just saved him. She'd become a part of the story he never knew he was allowed to write again. "Do you ever think about what this could be?" Noah asked softly. Clara turned toward him, her breath catching slightly. "This?" He gestured around. "You, me, Liam, not just co-guardians, not just friends." Clara's lips parted, but she didn't speak. "I know it's early," Noah added quickly. Sometimes I look at you and think, this might be what peace looks like." Clara turned away for a second, eyes on Liam, who was now pretending to interrogate a confused squirrel. "I think about it too," she whispered. And just like that, the world shifted slightly. Not with a bang, not with a dramatic kiss, but with a quiet confession that held more power than fireworks. They kept walking, moving down a shaded path lined with lilac bushes. "You know," Noah said, his voice more playful now, "I've been meaning to ask, what was it that made you trust me?" Clara didn't answer right away. Then she said, "You didn't try to be perfect. You let me see your broken pieces, and I saw mine in you." Noah stopped walking. "I was afraid you'd see those pieces and run. I was afraid no one ever would." That silence between them wasn't awkward. It was sacred. They walked past a small playground where kids ran barefoot across the mulch. Liam pulled at Clara's arm. "Can I play? Just 5 minutes?" Clara laughed. 5 minutes? 10 if your dad agrees." Noah grinned. "All right, go save the world." Liam ran off like he'd been granted superpowers. Clara and Noah sat on a nearby bench watching him. "He's so happy here," Noah said, almost in disbelief. "He's happy because he's with you." Noah leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I spent years believing I'd never deserve this, that someone like me, damaged, messy, lost, shouldn't try to rebuild anything." "You were surviving," Clara said gently. "Now you're living." He turned to her, and this time there was no hesitation. He reached for her hand again, fingers interlacing naturally. "I don't know what comes next," he said, "but whatever it is, I want you there." Clara squeezed his hand. Then I'm staying. They stayed like that for a while in no rush, just watching Liam, basking in the feeling of becoming something whole. Not perfect, but real. A light rain began to fall. Tiny drops speckled the concrete. Liam yelped and ran back to them, giggling. It's okay, Clara said, pulling out a small umbrella from her bag. She opened it and all three huddled beneath it, laughing as the wind whipped at the cherry blossoms and scattered them like confetti over their shoulders. Noah crouched beside Liam, brushing wet hair from his face. Let's go get hot chocolate. Can we get marshmallows too? Liam asked, his eyes huge. Clara winked. Only if your dad behaves. Noah laughed. I'll try. They walked toward the exit of the park, soaked, shivering slightly, but hearts warmer than ever. As they reached the street, a couple walking past smiled at them. Three figures under a single umbrella, one giggling, one pushing the stroller, one holding the hand of someone they loved. And suddenly Noah realized something. This was what family looked like. Messy, rainy, imperfect, but filled with love. Before they got into the car, Clara turned to Noah and kissed his cheek, simple and sweet. This is the beginning, she said. And he believed her, because this walk, this simple Sunday stroll, wasn't just an afternoon in the park. It was the moment everything changed. It was raining again. But this rain wasn't gentle or poetic like the spring drizzle from the park. This was a sharp, wind-whipped storm that hammered against the windows, the kind that makes you flinch when the thunder rolls too close. Noah stood inside Clara's apartment, barefoot, holding a steaming mug between his palms, but the warmth didn't reach the chill in his chest. He could hear Liam giggling in the next room, playing with blocks on the carpet, creating castles and space stations from bright-colored plastic. Safe, innocent, unaware. Clara walked in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her eyes met his, and they both paused. Because the storm outside wasn't the only one they were weathering. Noah cleared his throat. He called. Clara stopped moving. Who? She asked, but her voice was too calm, like she already knew. My father? Silence. The clock ticked once, twice. Clara finally spoke. What did he want? Noah looked down into his mug like the answers were hidden in the coffee. He said he wants to meet me, meet Liam. He said he's sick, terminal, stage 4. Her breath caught, barely audible over the wind outside. He never wanted to be found, she said softly. You spent years wondering if he was alive, and now he just calls? Noah nodded once. He said he's sorry, that he knows it's too late to fix anything, but he asked for a chance. Clara stepped closer. Do you want to see him? Noah didn't answer at first. His mind was a whirl of memories, of empty birthdays, of tear-stained letters returned unopened, of nights where little boy Noah clutched a pillow and prayed for someone who never came home. I don't know, he admitted. Part of me wants to scream at him. Part of me wants to slam the door in his face. But there's another part, his voice broke, that still wonders what it would have been like if he stayed. Clara put her hand over his. You don't owe him anything, Noah. But if this is something you need, for you, not for him, I'll support it. He closed his eyes, her touch grounding him. Would you come with me? To meet your father? She asked gently. To face the past, he said. I don't think I can do it alone. She nodded. Then we'll face it together. The next morning was gray and muted, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Noah sat in the passenger seat of Clara's car, Liam in the back playing with a toy airplane. They drove in silence, only the sound of tires on wet pavement filling the space. The address his father gave was a hospice facility just outside the city, a modest place surrounded by trees that were beginning to bloom again. When they pulled up, Noah froze. His legs felt like concrete. Clara placed her hand on his knee. You don't have to walk in with forgiveness. Just walk in with truth. He nodded barely. Liam tilted his head. Where are we? Noah turned around, his voice calm. We're visiting someone who knew me a long time ago. I don't know if it'll be fun, but I promise I won't be gone long. Clara will be right here with you, okay? Liam looked uncertain but nodded. Okay, Daddy? That word, Daddy was still new, still magic. Noah took a deep breath and stepped out. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and fading flowers. Nurses passed with polite smiles, but Noah barely noticed. Each step toward the room number he was given felt like walking through quicksand. He reached the door, raised his hand, and knocked. A weak voice called, "Come in." He pushed the door open slowly. The man inside looked like a ghost version of the one burned into Noah's childhood memories. Thinner, paler, eyes sunken, skin mottled with age and illness. Tubes and wires snaked from his arms to machines that beeped steadily. "Noah," he whispered. Noah swallowed hard. "Yeah, it's me." His father, David, smiled faintly. "You look like your mother." Same eyes. Noah didn't smile back. "You have a lot of nerve calling me." David nodded slowly, eyes watering. "I know, I didn't want to die without seeing your face again." Silence stretched between them, tense and raw. "Why?" Noah asked finally. "Why did you leave us?" David closed his eyes. "I was scared, weak. I told myself I'd come back when I had something to offer. But by the time I was ready, it was too late. I figured you'd moved on, that you hated me." "I did," Noah whispered. "I don't blame you," David said. "I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you, I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to be a father." Noah stood frozen. Every part of him ached. "You left me with nothing," he said. "I became a father terrified I'd do to my son what you did to me." "But you didn't," David said, eyes full of pride. "I saw the news. I know what happened. You fought for him. You became the man I never was." Noah looked away, fighting the lump in his throat. "He's everything." "I believe it," David whispered. "Is he here?" Noah hesitated. "In the car, with Clara." David smiled faintly. "The woman who stayed?" Noah nodded. "I'm glad you found someone who saw you," David said, "even when I didn't." A beat passed. Noah's chest heaved slightly. "I hated you for years," he said, "and I might never forgive you, but thank you for saying this, for not dying before giving me some kind of answer." David's eyes glistened. "That's more than I deserve." Noah stepped back. "Goodbye, Dad." David smiled sadly. "Goodbye, son." And for the first time in Noah's life, the word son didn't feel like a wound. It felt like a release. Back at the bar, Clara was reading to Liam. She looked up when Noah opened the door and slid in, his face pale but calm. "How did it go?" she asked. "He's dying," Noah said. "But he saw me, really saw me, and I said goodbye." Clara reached for his hand. "I'm proud of you." Noah turned to the back seat. "Hey, buddy, want to get ice cream?" Liam beamed. "Double scoops?" Noah grinned. "Triple." Clara laughed. "You're such a softie." "I am," he said, squeezing her hand, "but only for you two." As they drove off, the rain finally stopped, and light began to pierce through the clouds. And for the first time in years, Noah felt like the past had finally loosened its grip on his future. The morning sun was soft, honeyed gold spilling through the sheer curtains of Clara's small apartment. Light danced on the wooden floor like memories made visible. Noah sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring at an envelope. His hand shook slightly as he turned it over again and again. Clara stood behind him, gently tying her hair into a loose bun, watching him with calm patience. "You don't have to open it right now," she said. "I know," he whispered, "but I need to." He slid his finger beneath the flap and pulled out the single sheet of paper inside. It was his father's handwriting, shaky, rushed, but unmistakably his. The postmark had arrived 2 days after their last visit, 2 days after Noah had said goodbye. He unfolded the letter, his heart pounding. "Noah, thank you for seeing me, for looking me in the eye even when I knew I didn't deserve it. I know I won't get to watch your life unfold, but if I did, I'd be proud every single day. I saw the man you became, and I saw that boy in your eyes, the one who waited at the window, hoping I'd come back. I hope someday you'll understand why I stayed away, but I'm grateful you didn't become me. You became something better. Tell your son, he comes from a line of broken men trying to learn how to love better. And tell Clara, Thank you for standing where I couldn't, with more regret than I can say, and more love than you know, Dad. Noah read the words twice before lowering the letter onto the table. Tears filled his eyes, but they didn't fall. Do you regret going to see him? Claire asked gently. Noah shook his head. No, I think I would have carried that question for the rest of my life if I hadn't. Clara reached for his hand. Then let's make today about something else. He looked up. Like what? She smiled. A beginning? That afternoon, they took Liam to the community center near the edge of town. It was having its spring fair, a modest event with balloon animals, small games, and a petting zoo that made Liam laugh until he hiccuped. Clara walked ahead, letting Liam tug her toward the cotton candy stand. Noah followed behind, hands in his pockets, watching them like someone finally seeing color after years of gray. A woman approached him from the crowd, middle-aged, kind-eyed, familiar. Mr. Carter? He blinked. Yes? I'm Mrs. Albright. I run the early education program at Willow Creek Elementary. Oh, he said, extending his hand. Nice to meet you. I've been meaning to talk to you, she said, voice low but warm. Liam's story, well, it reached us. The custody fight, the press, and your quiet return to life like nothing ever happened. Noah smiled tightly. I wouldn't say nothing. She nodded. We've had a little boy at the school, Isaac, who reminds me a lot of Liam. Smart, kind, but going through a tough time. What kind of tough? His mother passed a year ago. His father's absent, lives with his aunt now, but she works 2 jobs. Noah's chest tightened. I was wondering, she continued, if maybe you'd be open to mentoring him. Just an hour a week. Someone to show up, read with him, remind him that people stay. Noah looked across the fair. Liam was feeding a goat, squealing with laughter as Clara held his hand and guided him. He turned back to Mrs. Albright. Yeah, he said softly, I can do that. Because someone once needed to show up for him. Now it was his turn. Later that night, Clara tucked Liam into bed. He was sticky with sugar and tired from excitement, his limbs heavy as he sank into the sheets. I had the best day ever, he murmured, half asleep. Even better than Christmas. She smiled. That's because we were all together. He yawned. Will we always be? Her heart caught at the question. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. Always, baby. Noah stood in the doorway watching, and something in his chest unknotted. He stepped in as Clara stood, and together they turned out the lights. But neither went to bed. Instead, they sat on the small sofa, legs tangled, the city glowing faintly beyond the window. I got offered a job, Clara said quietly. His eyes widened. Really? Yeah, at the local family shelter. It's not glamorous, but it feels like the kind of work that means something. He smiled. It's perfect. What about you? She asked. You've been quiet. I want to apply to be a counselor, he said, for the foster system. Kids like Liam, or like I was. Her eyes filled with warmth. I love that. I think I finally understand that healing doesn't mean forgetting, he said. It means choosing to love anyway. She rested her head on his shoulder. You're not the same man I met that night. You are, he said. But now I see all the light you carry. She blinked, tears welling. You don't have to say that. I do, he said, because before you, I didn't know people like you existed. They sat in silence, the quiet hum of life around them. Not perfect, but real. And in the next room, a little boy dreamed without fear. A week later, they stood in a courthouse again. But this time it wasn't for a fight. It was for a beginning. The judge smiled as he read over the papers. No objections, full custody granted, and I see you're submitting a petition for a name change? Noah nodded, heart pounding. Yes, Your Honor. The judge glanced at the boy standing beside them, holding Clara's hand tightly. And what will his name be? Noah knelt, looking Liam in the eye. You ready? Liam nodded excitedly. The judge smiled. Then let the record show. Liam Noah Carter. A small cheer broke out in the room. Liam turned and threw his arms around Noah. I'm your real son now. Noah held him tight. You always were. Clara joined them, wrapping her arms around both. It wasn't a wedding, there were no rings, but it was a family, built not by blood, but by choice, by effort, by love. As they walked out into the sunlight, a breeze swept through the trees, and Clara looked up. "You know," she said, smiling, "this would make a good story." Noah laughed. "Too unbelievable." She shrugged. "Still worth telling." He nodded, holding her hand. "Then let's keep writing it." And as they walked toward the future, Liam skipping ahead, their hands intertwined, the story they never expected to live became the story they could never imagine losing. Because sometimes life breaks you down just enough to rebuild you into something stronger. And sometimes the love that finds you after the storm is the kind that stays, always.